C'est l'info qui bouge, le son qui fait vibrer et la radio qui vous parle.
Bon après-midi, merci ou pouvez rejoindre-nous pour suivre la PNQ. Patrick Hilbert, bon après-midi.
Bon après-midi Priscilla et bon après-midi chers auditeurs et auditrices.
Suppression progressive de ban allocations de la CSG, contribution sociale généralisée, au cœur de la Private Notice Question à l'Assemblée nationale ce vendredi. Leader de l'opposition qui peut questionner Premier ministre Navin Ramgoolam à ce sujet. Jules Jonga peut oublier ban éclaircissement, le nombre d'employeurs qui contribuaient, somme qui finit collectée depuis janvier 2025. Projection pour l'année financière 2025-2026 et 2026-2027. Les Oulé aussi connaît pour chaque allocation concernée le nombre de bénéficiaires et une économie mensuelle et annuelle qui prévoit jusqu'à cette suppression totale. Pour rappel, contribution sociale généralisée est introduite en septembre 2020 en remplacement du National Pension Fund et n'a 8 types d'allocations CSG qui gérées par la MRA actuellement, Patrick.
Effectivement, donc la CSG Income Allowance, la CSG Child Allowance qui est de 2000 roupies par enfant de moins de 3 ans, la CSG School Allowance, la Pregnancy Care Allowance, la Maternity Allowance, le Revenu Minimum Garanti Allowance, l'Equal Chance Allowance et l'Independence Allowance. Donc ces allocations sont en cours de suppression progressive entre juillet 2025 et juin 2025 dans le cadre de ma nouvelle mesure budgétaire Priscilla. Entre septembre 2020 et avril 2025, la CSG finit collecter 44,6 milliards, dont 34 milliards, donc la très grande majorité, finit versée à une allocation sociale. Et 10,7 milliards, donc le reste de ce 34 milliards, finit versé aux employés publics et à la contribution de l'État. Le fonds aujourd'hui donc est considéré comme épuisé.
Alors, budget 2025 qui est présenté, Patrick, par Premier ministre Navin Ramgoolam en juin cette année-là, qui annonce révision système pension incluant la CSG qui pour remplacer par un NPF actualisé et pour une commission d'experts qui pour élaborer une recommandation en mai 2025. Navin Ramgoolam qui confirmé dans le Parlement que la caisse CSG est vide.
Effectivement, donc commission d'experts dont les membres n'ont pas encore été nommés, donc sa nomination pour faire incessamment. FMI, dès mai 2024, je recommande une suppression progressive de l'allocation CSG en ciblant une réduction des dépenses publiques tout en préservant le soutien aux plus vulnérables. Le gouvernement actuel met en avant le problème de viabilité fiscale. Donc, les ressources collectées n'a pas couvert les dépenses avec un déficit budgétaire de plus de 9 milliards pour la ligne CSG au cours de l'exercice financier en cours. Suppression progressive des allocations CSG pour faire d'ici juin 2027 au lieu de l'arrêt initialement prévu en juin 2025. Sa réforme-là, Priscilla, inscrit dans une logique de consolidation budgétaire, notamment après la mise en lumière de fonds épuisés et un déficit persistant. Selon une projection, les recettes annuelles passent d'environ 16,28 milliards en 2025-2026 à 20,74 milliards en 2027-2028.
Alors, dans le Parlement, vendredi dernier, Navin Ramgoolam annonce maintien de toute allocation sociale découlant de la CSG pour une famille qui inscrit l'au registre social, notamment Independence Allowance. C'était lors de la présentation du Finance Bill. Premier ministre qui annonce également augmentation minimum garantie Allowance qui passe de 500 roupies à 890 roupies. Navin Ramgoolam laisse entendre que l'ancien régime typé envisage une suppression brutale de ban allocation de la CSG, alors que ce gouvernement fin opté pour un arrêt progressif. Alors, dans quelques minutes, il est déjà 15h presque 9. Nous pourrons suivre cette PNQ de Joe Lejonga, donc qui a accès au ban allocation de la CSG. Alors, la PNQ qui est supposée démarrer donc à 15h, là il est presque 15h09. Et sinon, Patrick, fin de ban débat aujourd'hui, le Finance Bill. Rodrigues Regional Bill, Assembly Amendment Bill et Economic and Financial Measures Miscellaneous Provisions Bill à l'Assemblée nationale.
Donc, sont attendus, après la PNQ, une intervention d'Orvin Boulel, ministre de l'Agro-Industrie, puis de Paul Béranger, Premier ministre adjoint, qui donc maintenant précède la clôture des débats, le summing up de ces 3 textes de loi donc, qui peuvent débattre en même temps par le Premier ministre Navin Ramgoolam. Finance Bill, nous rappelons, met en œuvre des mesures budgétaires et financières. Donc, mardi dernier, déjà, il y a plusieurs orateurs, le Finance Bill. Donc, le débat fin commencé vendredi la semaine dernière. Donc, mardi, la semaine dernière, avec Navin Ramgoolam qui fin ouvert les débats sur ces 3 textes de loi. Donc, mardi dernier, finina 7 intervenants, c'est-à-dire le leader de l'opposition Jolie Jonga, bref, suivent par le ministre Reza Outim, finina le député Edouard Rodrigue, finina Adrien Duval, whip de l'opposition et seul député du PMSD. Finina aussi Francisco François, député de Rodrigue, Damri, donc qui est le Junior Minister of Finance. Finina aussi Jyoti Jitan, qui finit intervenir, la ministre des Services financiers, donc l'IEM dernier Dimoun a intervenir mardi dernier sur le débat de Finance Bill.
Alors 15h10, la PNQ qui se fait attendre, que se passe-t-il donc? Alors nous rappelle encore une fois donc qu'il a PNQ de ce vendredi après-midi axée sur suppression progressive de allocations de la CSG, contribution sociale généralisée. Et le leader de l'opposition qui questionne Premier ministre Navin Ramgoolam, Jolie Jonga Oulé, gagne éclaircissement, le nombre d'employeurs qui contribuaient, somme qui finit collectée depuis janvier de cette année, projection pour l'année financière 2025-2026 et 2026-2027. Les Oulé connaissent aussi donc pour chaque allocation le nombre de bénéficiaires et que économie mensuelle et annuelle qui prévoit jusqu'à cette suppression. Nous rappelons qui contribution sociale généralisée qui introduite en septembre 2020 en remplacement National Pension Fund et na 8 types allocations CSG qui gérées par la MRA actuellement. Alors c'est CSG Income Allowance, CSG Child Allowance, CSG School Allowance, Pregnancy Care Allowance, Maternity Allowance, Revenue Minimum Guarantee Allowance, Equal Chance Allowance, Independence Allowance. Donc presque 15h12.
Donc Priscilla, c'est aussi la fin de la mise en place du budget qui finit présenté le 5 juin dernier par Navin Ramgoolam, donc Premier ministre et ministre des Finances. Donc après, normalement aujourd'hui, en fin de journée, député poil en vacances parlementaires qui traditionnellement jusqu'à septembre-octobre. Donc nous rappelle aussi que le principal point, le point le plus controversé du budget, Priscilla, c'est le report de l'éligibilité au BRP, Basic Retirement Pension, donc il passe de 60 à 65 ans. Donc l'âge de la retraite, Priscilla, donc ça c'était déjà à 65 ans depuis 2008. Donc je rappelle qu'il y a un petit peu une anomalie dans notre système qui veut que l'âge de la retraite est à 65 ans, mais Dimoun peut continuer de toucher le BRP à partir de 60 ans. Donc Dimoun peut travailler jusqu'à pendant 5 ans, 60 à 65 ans, tout en touchant ce BRP. Donc le budget fin quelque part corrige ça, mais ça soulève une vague de protestations.
Alors là, vous pensez que ça va venir dans peu de temps, donc nous rappelle aussi c'est la fin de débat, le Finance Bill. Aujourd'hui, le Rodrigues Regional Assembly Amendment Bill et l'Economic and Financial Measures Miscellaneous Provisions Bill. Et donc, intervention d'Orvin Boulel, ministre de l'Agro-Industrie, Paul Béranger, Premier ministre adjoint, qui est attendu. Le Finance Bill qui met en œuvre des mesures budgétaires et financières. 15h13. Donc est-ce que peut-être nous marquons une courte pause, le temps qui nous capable de suivre cette PNQ à l'Assemblée nationale. Bientôt, donc 14 minutes depuis que la PNQ s'est posée et démarrée. À tout de suite. Nous vous prenons tout de suite la direction de l'Assemblée nationale pour suivre la PNQ du leader de l'opposition axée la suppression progressive de allocations de la CSG. Donc, leader de l'opposition qui peut questionner Premier ministre Navin Ramgoolam à ce sujet. Julie Jongar ou les gains éclaircissement, le nombre d'employeurs qui contribuaient, somme qui finit collectée depuis janvier 2025, projection pour l'année financière 2025, 2026 et 2026-2027. Les aussi connaît pour chaque allocation concernée le nombre de bénéficiaires et l'économie mensuelle et annuelle qui prévoit jusqu'à cette suppression totale.
Announcement. Yes, honourable members. I am pleased to announce that we will be hosting the 4th edition of the National Youth Parliament on the 21st and 22nd of August 2025 here in the Chamber of the National Assembly. Youth parliaments have developed worldwide, providing young people with a platform to discuss issues of national and international importance. There are several models. In Mauritius, our youngsters are invited to engage in parliamentary simulations and thus They can deepen their understanding of democratic processes and express their views freely on matters which are of concern to them. They can exercise fully their rights and liberties as proclaimed in the International Convention on the Rights of the Child and in our Constitution. In keeping with this spirit, this fourth edition of the National Youth Parliament will bring together 76 young individuals aged between 14 and 23 to role play as members and officers of the National Assembly. Intensive training and preparatory sessions starting on Monday, the 4th of August, 2025, will enable them to communicate with efficiency and learn how to develop their leadership skills while having a deeper understanding of parliamentary history, legislative procedures, and the rules and decorum that guide the proceedings of this August Assembly. Honourable members, during the event, the participants will engage in debates centred on the Sustainable Development Goals and other themes. They will discover how they also have a role to play to promote peace, justice, and liberty. This is an excellent opportunity for our youth to draw our attention on issues which, as adults, we may not see in the same way. It may be an eye-opener for some of us. In any case, as civic education is not yet a reality in all schools in Mauritius, this is a unique occasion for our youth. Honourable members, I therefore seize this opportunity to invite you all to attend and provide valuable encouragement to the participants through your presence over the two-day event on 21st and 22nd of August. I thank you for your attention.
Papers have been laid. Question?
Yes, Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I've given notice of the following private notice question addressed to Dr. the Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Defence, Home Affairs and External Communications, Minister of Finance, Minister for Rodrigues and Outer Islands, whether in regard to the progressive phasing out of the social allowances schemes financed through the Contribution Sociale Généralisée, CSG funds, he will state A, the number of employers contributing thereto, indicating the amount collected therefrom since January 2025 to date, and projected collections for the financial years 2025 to 2026 and 2026 to 2027, and B, under each respective social allowance scheme, the one number of beneficiaries concerned therewith, and 2, amount expected to be saved on a monthly and annual basis, respectively, until the complete phasing out thereof. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Yes, Honourable Prime Minister.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Let me at the very outset remind the House that the former government, in a bid to win the 2019 general elections, announced on the 1st of October 2019, on the occasion of the International Day for the Elderly, that the monthly basic retirement pension would be increased from 9,000 to 13,500 without any consideration whatsoever on the sustainability of such a decision. C'était clairement un bribe électoral. Seulement 5 semaines avant l'élection de 2019. Madam Speaker, the former government decided to introduce the CSG to finance the additional budget deficit created by this measure. However, in so doing, they simply destroyed the pension system by abolishing contributions to the National Pension Fund established since 1976 and which served as the cornerstone for our retirement system, providing financial security and stability for our citizens. With regard to Part A of the question, the rates of CSG contribution in respect of an employee earning up to 50,000 rupees a month, or 1.5% and 3% of basic salary for the employee and his employer, respectively. As regards an employee earning above 50,000 rupees a month, the rates of contribution are 3%, and for the employer, 6%. I'm informed by the Mauritius Revenue Authority that from January 2025 to date, the number of employers from the private sector who have contributed towards the CSG is 33,291. In addition, there were some 10,026 self-employed who have contributed to the CSG, and furthermore, the government has also contributed to the CSG. The total amount of the CSG collected from employers during the period January 2025 to date amounts to 5.1 billion rupees, of which 4 billion is from the private sector and 1.1 billion from the public sector. The total amount of CSG collected from employees in the private and public sectors amounts to, therefore, 2.6 billion rupees. As regards self-employed, they have contributed a total of 123 million rupees during the period January 2025 to date. The projected CSG collection from employers for financial year 2025-2026 is 9.6 billion rupees, and for financial year 2026-2027, it is 10.9 billion rupees. The total amount of CSG collection, that is including employers, employees, and self-employed, is projected to be 14.7 billion rupees in financial year 2025-2026 and 16.7 billion rupees in financial year 2026-2027. As regards to Part B of the question, Madam Speaker, the previous government had introduced a number of schemes under the Social Contribution and Social Benefits Act instead of paying the increase in the pension. First, the CSG income allowance was introduced from July 2022. Second, the CSG child allowance was introduced as from July 2023. Third, the independence allowance was introduced as from July 2023. Fourth, the CSG school allowance was introduced as from July 2024. Fifth, the pregnancy care allowance was introduced as from July 2024. Sixth, the maternity allowance was introduced again from July 2024. Seventh, the revenue minimum guarantee was introduced in July 2024. And eighth, the equal chance allowance was introduced in July 2024. With regard to Part B1 of the question, I'm informed by the MRA that the number of beneficiaries under each scheme since January 2025 to date is as follows. 1, 349,168 under the CSG income allowance, 38,783 under the CSG child allowance, 6,780 under the independence allowance, 84,478 under the CSG school allowance, 3,909 under the pregnancy care allowance, 11,117 under the maternity allowance, 58,562 under the revenue minimum guarantee, and 610,117 under the equal chance allowance. Madam Speaker, all these allowances, except for the independence allowance, were planned to end abruptly in June 2025 by the previous government. I'm also informed by the MRA that for the period January 2025 to date, a total amount of 7.6 billion rupees have been disbursed from all these schemes. In addition, Madam Speaker, government is paying the CSG retirement benefits, the industrial injury benefit, and the disability allowance. During the period January 2025 to date, a total of 2.1 billion rupees has been disbursed for these expenditures. The previous government must have known surely they must have known, that these allowances were not sustainable. Let me quote the former Minister of Finance, who in a reply to a parliamentary question in October 2023, confessed, and I quote, « Il ne reste donc rien par rapport aux contributions de la CSG », unquote. I would also like to inform the House that for financial year 2024-2025, payments effected under the CSG far exceeded the contributions being collected by some 9.3 billion rupees. Madam Speaker, the compassionate government, we are ensuring that the CSG allowances, instead of ending abruptly, as was planned in June 2025, we have decided to gradually phase it out over the next 2 years. We are also providing that vulnerable individuals and households registered on the Social Register of Mauritius will continue to receive these allowances in full, including the independence allowance. Furthermore, we also provided that the payment of the disability allowance to persons over 60 years who are now not eligible for basic retirement pension but will qualify under the income support criteria. B, the increase of the revenue minimum guarantee allowance has been increased from 500 rupees to 899 rupees in financial year 2025-2026 and a further 1,890 rupees in financial year 2026-2027, so as to ensure that the full-time worker earns a minimum monthly revenue of 20,000 rupees. And C, we are maintaining the equal chance allowance of 2,000 rupees per month for households earning less than 20,000 rupees monthly. Madam Speaker, the previous government had introduced the CSG to unknowingly undermine the very purpose of the National Pension Fund. The NPF, I remind the House, was established in 1976, operated as a contributory scheme. That is, both employees and employers made mandatory contributions, which were then invested to ensure long-term sustainability and to provide retirement benefits which were linked to individual contribution. In contrast, the CSG was designed as a pay-as-you-go system. That is, a tax where the funds are credited to the consolidated fund, whereby current contributions are immediately, therefore, used for payments, with no direct link between what an individual contributes and what they ultimately receive. The CSG is rapidly revealed deep structural weaknesses that now threaten the very foundations of our pension system and the fiscal health of our nation. In regards to Part B2 of the question, there would have been significant savings in relation to expenditure, that is, if we had implemented what the previous government planned, that is, ending the payments in June 2025. On the contrary, we are making provision for the payment of the allowances over the next 2 years, despite the fiscal challenges we are facing. In addition, we are taking steps to reform the pension system with a revamped NPF. In this context, as I have announced in the budget speech, the setting up of a commission of experts to look into the reform of the various pillars of the pension system, as well as the revamping of the national pension system, is ongoing. The Ministry of Finance is currently liaising with both the IMF and the World Bank to assist in the formulation of the terms of reference of the Commission. I would not like, Madam Speaker, to preempt the recommendations of the Commission, but however, it is obvious that the bulk of the CSG contributions in its current form would be used to finance the new NPF system. Madam Speaker, I wish to emphasize that review of the CSG allowances needs to be considered in conjunction with the overall revamping of the pension system. This reform is absolutely critical and has to be looked into in a global or holistic manner. It does not only aim at enhancing fiscal sustainability, but will also ensure a parity between what each generation pays and receives, thereby promoting fairness in intergenerational burden sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Yes, first question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. As far as I know, those allowances were never meant to be stopped abruptly, that is in June 2025. In his reply, the Honorable Prime Minister referred to what he stated in the budget speech that is 2 months ago, that is for the setting up of a commission of experts. Already 2 months have elapsed. Can we know from the Honorable Prime Minister when that commission will be set up?
Yes, Prime Minister.
First of all, let me say, remind the Honourable Leader of the Opposition that he himself voted for that abrupt stopping of the CSG. And it was in the final Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 2024. It was meant to amend the Social Contribution and Social Benefits Act, and these, it is said, and he said it also, to stop the payment of these allowances in June 2025. You seem to have forgotten that you voted for it. You didn't realize that you voted for it. As for the Commission on the Pension, I just mentioned that we have already chosen, but we're not naming him officially because we want to name all the members, the person who will preside, and also we are waiting for the terms of reference because you have to be very, very precise on the terms of reference. And the World Bank and the IMF are helping out with this.
Thank you. Your second question? Supplementary question?
Yes, Madam Speaker, the phasing out of the CSG allowances will no doubt affect the livelihood of many families in this country. Now, during the second reading of the Finance Bill, the Honourable Prime Minister determined the sum of 20,000 rupees as the minimum monthly revenue till the end of the financial year 2026-2027. Can the Honourable Prime Minister confirm to the House whether the salary compensation for those eligible for the revenue minimum guarantee will be absorbed this time by government? And can he also confirm, based on what he said during his intervention on the Finance Bill in the House, that there will be no increase of the minimum monthly revenue till 2027?
Obvious, Madam Speaker, that with the mess that they left us, where do you get the money from? Print money from the bank again? From the central bank? No question of doing that. No question of doing that. As for you asked for the compensation, salary compensation, this is a matter for the PRB, and we are looking at it. Because there was no money in the coffers. So how do you distribute money? We do not intend to print money from the bank.
For the salary compensation, I meant for the private sector, Madam Speaker.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
For the salary compensation, he meant for the private sector. That's what he just said. So maybe you can reformulate, please, Leader.
Question whether this will be absorbed by government, salary compensation or paid for workers of the private sector and the public sector also.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition surely knows this is an annual thing that happens. It's annual.
Your third.
So it will be absorbed by government then, for both private and public sector. Can the Honourable Prime Minister confirm that the purchasing power of a majority of Mauritian citizens will take a hit, and this will impact not only those families but also small and medium enterprises?
Prime Minister?
I'm not quite sure I understood everything, but whatever you say, the fact is that you made a mess of the economy and we're trying to redress this situation.
Your fourth question?
Yes, Madam Speaker. The Prime Minister recalled that in the budget speech, he had announced a sum of 2 billion rupees instead of the 10 billion promised by government to reduce prices of basic commodities. Can he inform the House where matters stand and whether the mechanism has already been put in place for those 2 billion rupees?
Honourable Leader, I'm sorry. It seems to me that doesn't arise from your question. But if the Prime Minister wants to reply.
No, I was going to say it doesn't arise from the question, and furthermore, we never said 10 billion. We said for the first year we are doing this, we are putting this 2 billion rupees.
You have a further question?
Yes.
Yes?
With regard to the housing loan relief scheme, which will be phased out over the next 2 years, and the home ownership and home loan repayment schemes, which will not be renewed, will the Prime Minister confirm that these decisions could significantly impact low and medium income families who very often rely on such programs, Madam Speaker, for home ownership? And secondly, can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House what does government intend to do to help those families?
First of all, I'm not sure where the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is taking out all these statements that are supposedly made. We are looking at it, as I said, in a holistic manner, everything. I mentioned all the allowances that they gave without any thought about whether it was sustainable or not, and I mentioned all of them. And this is what I'm referring to.
Nonetheless, Leader of the Opposition, if I may, your question is on contribution sociale généralisée. Which are derived from the CSG, all right?
But these were not actually the schemes, or not financed from the financial form of the CSG funds. These are nothing to do with the CSG funds.
Don't speak sitting down. You finished? Yes, your friend wants to speak.
I have two supplementaries, if you allow. The first being...
allow you one to start with.
Yes, thank you. The first being, given that the low-income earners earning less than 20,000, which are being guaranteed a minimum salary of 20,000 for the CSG income allowance and the minimum revenue guarantee, which is going to stagnate in the next 3 financial years to 20,000 rupees, as the Prime Minister no doubt knows. How will he protect those families from the rise of cost of living and to make good on his promise to protect purchasing power of the lowest of the low?
Well, we've taken 2 measures to protect those at the lower rank. First of all, we just mentioned the contribution. We are doing 2 billion rupees to stabilize the prices. Secondly, we are adamant that we must try to stop this horrific depreciation of the rupee. 46% over 10 years, 46%. Already the rupee has appreciated against the dollar, I think by some 5%, if I'm not mistaken. So these are the measures we are taking.
Second question, yes?
Madam Speaker, may I ask this another one? May I ask the Prime Minister, given that the CSG allowances, including the CSG income allowances, including the CSG family allowances, that is child, school, maternity and housing, are being cut by 33%, 1/3, while the budget doubles down on sugar tax, hikes in motor vehicle and road license fees, and also significantly widens the VAT net to thousands of small retailers, which will have a significant increase on the cost of living. How will he protect the rest of those persons earning, therefore, 20,000 or more up until 50,000 from the significant increases in the price of living, making good on your promise?
You should have asked the former Minister of Finance, when he was destroying the economy, what was he going to do for that? You should have asked him.
Okay. Last question. Yes, last question.
Thank you. The Honourable Prime Minister in his replies stated that some 10,026 self-employed have contributed to the CSG. Now, with regard to those self-employed, will the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House whether now this category of workers who were contributing to the CSG fund will now be asked to contribute to the whole NSF and NPF system?
As I said, Madam Speaker, we're looking at the whole pension scheme. We want to re-establish the National Pension Fund, which was destroyed by your government. We are appointing a committee. We are waiting for the terms of reference. We could do the terms of reference, but we would like to have experts to guide us. The World Bank has huge experience in that, and also the IMF, and they are about to give us the terms of reference.
Thank you, Prime Minister. That is it for PNQ today. I call Honourable Prime Minister.
Motion.
I'm sorry, motion.
Et voilà donc pour cette PNQ de Joe Lejongar, axée la suppression progressive de ban allocation de la CSG, donc contribution sociale généralisée. Leader de l'opposition qui fait une question Premier ministre, Joe Lejongar fait une ban éclaircissement le nombre d'employeurs qui fin contribuer, somme qui fin collectée depuis janvier 2025, projection pour l'année financière 2025, 2026 et 2026-2027. Les fins où les aussi connaît pour chaque allocation concernée le nombre de bénéficiaires et ban économie mensuelle et annuelle qui peut prévoir jusqu'à cette suppression totale. Premier ministre Navin Ramgoolam fin d'abord rappelle qui l'ancien régime, fin dire qui l'ancien régime le 1er octobre 2019 annonce une augmentation de pension de 9 000 à 13 500 roupies. Selon lui, c'était une bribe électorale 5 semaines avant l'élection. L'idée qui de janvier à ce jour, nombre d'employeurs qui finissent contribuer à la CSG, c'est 33 291 et ben self-employed, c'est 10 026. 5 milliards de roupies fin collectés jusqu'ici et l'IPEDIA projection pour l'année financière 2025-2026, c'est 14 milliards de roupies et 16,7 milliards de roupies pour l'année financière 2026-2027. Les fins revin le détail concernant allocation CSG. Il y a fin débourse 7,6 milliards de roupies pour sa allocation sociale là. Premier ministre dit aussi que l'ancien régime CP envisage une suppression brutale de ban allocation de la CSG alors que ce gouvernement fin opté pour un arrêt progressif. Premier ministre qui fin un rappel qui peut augmente minimum garantie allowance donc qui peut passe de 500 à 890 roupies et les fin aussi revine la commission d'experts qui fin annoncé dans le budget pour revoir le système de pension les équipes atteindre terms of reference de la Banque de Maurice mais aussi de la Banque mondiale et de FMI. Et finalement, une question additionnelle de Joe Lejongar qui d'abord fin dire qui à aucun moment parti dire qui pour arrêter sa ban allowance là brutalement. Et finalement, une question Patrick Hilbert, la commission d'experts.
Donc, comment on finit dire? Donc, Joe Lejongar, leader de l'opposition, finit dire qui envie corrige le Premier ministre en disant que l'ancien gouvernement n'avait jamais l'intention d'arrêter brutalement ses allocations, le versement de ses allocations en 2025. À cette remarque, le Premier ministre finit dire qui leader de l'opposition lui-même, Joe Lejongar, quand il est ministre, lui-même, il fait une vote pour une fin abrupte de sa allocation en 2025. Il veut dire que le Miscellaneous Provisions Act type clairement dire qui pour arrêter sa allocation là en 2025. Donc,
oui. Et puis, finalement aussi, une question donc, de Joe Lejongar toujours concernant l'impact de cette suppression progressive donc, de la CSG.
Donc il fait justement beaucoup question de l'impact sur les familles de la suppression de familles vulnérables et de familles qui touchent moins de 50 000 roupies suite à la suppression progressive donc 2 ans jusqu'à 2027 de ces différentes allocations. Nous rappelle qu'il y en a 8 allocations en tout. Donc le Premier ministre finit dire qui voilà mais c'est le gouvernement, l'ancien gouvernement qui laisse l'économie dans une total mess pour reprendre ces mots exacts. Et seulement veut dire que voilà qu'une manière compensationnée de ce papier arrête tout d'un seul coup, mais ce papier est en une période de 2 ans, donc un phasing out progressif. Il aussi peut rappeler qu'il y a des gens qui ont la liste sur le registre social, les autres pour continuer de toucher toutes les allocations qu'ils ont déjà touchées, donc à ce niveau-là, non, il n'y a pas pour changer. Il faut dire aussi qu'au niveau des housing loan relief scheme et les home ownership scheme, donc Joe Lejongar fin dire que voilà sa décision d'arrêter ça, il peut impacter sérieusement les familles lower and middle class income family. Donc il fin dire que seulement le gouvernement n'a aucun choix parce que nous dans une situation extrêmement critique, une caisse la vide et bizarre réforme totalement le système de pension.
Il y a également une question additionnelle d'Adrien Duval, Patrick Hilbert.
Donc notamment justement par rapport à low income earners qui gagnent moins que 20 000 roupies, donc il peut dire que voilà maintenant pour stagner à 20 000 roupies, donc c'est pas pour gagner plus d'ici jusqu'à 2027. Voilà, donc PM finit encore une fois dire que la situation exige des mesures drastiques.
Alors sinon, au début de la séance, qui nous rappelle, film commence avec d'une vingtaine de minutes, même plus, Patrick Hilbert, avec plus de 20 minutes de retard. Alors au début de la séance, la speaker Shirin Omirodizifra annonce le National Youth Parliament qui prévoit du 21 au 22 août, compte notamment 66 jeunes entre 14 et 23 ans pour participer.
Donc c'est la 4e édition de ce National Youth Parliament qui prendra lieu au Parlement. Donc c'est avant ce 21 et 22 août, donc les 2 jours durant lesquels Pona sa Parlement des jeunes. Pona à partir du 4 août, une formation, training pour apprendre comment communiquer, apprendre une procédure parlementaire, un débat pour le Sustainable Development Goals, entre autres. Donc, Shirin Omirodizifra, la speaker, finit dire que c'est une occasion unique pour les jeunes d'apprendre les rouages du Parlement.
Et sinon, donc, nous rappelle, c'est la fin de débat, Law Finance Bill, Rodriguez Regional Assembly Amendment Bill et l'Economic Financial Measures Miscellaneous Provisions Bill. Patrick.
Avec Arvin Boulel qui déjà commence son intervention. Donc ensuite, après lui, pour Paul Béranger, Premier ministre adjoint. Et ce sera le Premier ministre Navid Ramgoolam qui va clôturer les débats sur ces 3 bills.
Nous rappelle donc que le Finance Bill met en œuvre une mesure budgétaire et financière. Voilà donc pour le compte-rendu de cette séance de la PNQ axée sur la suppression progressive de l'allocation de la CSG. Question de Julie Jongar, donc au Premier ministre qui fait une réponse à une question additionnelle. Merci Patrick Hilbert.
Merci à vous Priscilla.
Alors à 16h30, le journal complet qui pour présenter par Elodie Demen, vous êtes capable de suivre de larges extraits de cette PNQ. Merci à toute l'équipe technique en régie, donc Sami, également Antish Bawan. À très bientôt.